Hi, this is Jamey from Stonemeyer Games. This is actually my third attempt at this video. The first two didn't take. They got really long. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. Today I want to talk about my favorite game mechanism in a game called Medici. This is a game I discovered on my iPad a few years ago, and that's pretty much the only way I've played it since then, although I think it would work great on the table too. The cool thing about Medici is that the way you determine who wins the game is the same way that you attain things during the game. By that I mean that money is both a resource in the game and it's a definition of success. I really like this because in games I like when there are quantitative ways of defining success in a way that connect directly to real life. There are many ways that we define our success in real life, and one of them is money. So it works in games. If you have the most money, then that's one way of comparing your level of success to other people or players in a game. And I really like in Medici the push and pull between spending that money, which are essentially points, but it's money. You're spending those points with that money, knowing that at the end of the game you need to have the most money. It's pretty rare in a game. Most designers, including myself, we kind of like that abstraction between resources and however you win the game at the end of the game. But in Medici, it just works that you have this push and pull between the thing that you're spending and the thing you're trying to also get to win the game. And I think part of that is there's an auction mechanism in Medici. I've seen this also work in Small World. Small World, you spend money, and at the end of the game, if you have the most money, you win the game. It works in Libertalia, a game about pirates. It's a simultaneous action game where you're spending money throughout the game. If you have the most at the end, you win. And Sheriff of Nottingham is another one where money is a huge resource. It's not the only resource in the game. You also have cards, but it's a huge resource during the game. And at the end of the game, if you have the most money, you win. So I filmed a longer video before this, and it just went long, where I listed a lot of other quantitative ways of defining success in real life, and how I would like to see some of those ways come into games a little bit more. Because as designers, I think at least I feel this way about my own designs, and I'd like to do better in future designs. We use victory points as kind of a crutch. Victory points aren't really anything. It's something that we've made up to define success in board games, but they don't really have a connection in real life unless you make a clear connection. For example, one of the things I mentioned in the video is popularity or fame. Popularity and fame are ways of defining success in real life, and some of them are subjective. You know, we can't really quantify them, but some are things that we can actually count, like number of Facebook likes, number of Twitter followers, number of votes you receive in an election, number of page views you get on a YouTube video. These are ways that we define success that can be counted and compared to other players. And I think that could work really well in a game where popularity or fame, that is the victory condition, and maybe it's also somehow a resource. You might have to give up some fame in the game to get more fame later in the game. So I'm going to try to keep this video under 5 minutes, and I'm just going to list all these things one by one. I'm not going to go into them in detail. These are other ways that you can define points in games in a way that can also relate to real life, objective, like quantitative measures of success. Power, so like the number of battles won or the size of your army, the size of your population, the number of people, the amount of land you own or control, the amount of assets you control, like the number of resources you either make or that you currently have, if it's a city game, your crime level, so if you have fewer murders in your city compared to other players. Your skill level, like in karate, you have series of belts up to black belt. That's a way to define success. RPGs use this in terms of experience points. If you are the fastest, so if you were the first to cross the finish line in a racing game, that's a definition of success that's quantitative. Your IQ, your SAT score, your level of education, your intelligence. Those are all ways. If you have the least of something, so there are games like Blockus where you're trying to get rid of the most of your blocks and you want to have the least at the end, or Last Will, you want to have the least money at the end. You could, a lot of games, instead of using points, they just let you compare yourself to other players along a track. So if you've done something more than other players, or you have more of something than other players, that's a nice way to do it without really abstracting the concept. If you sell the most of something, so if you're on a bestseller list, it's kind of money, but more so you're looking at like the total number of things that you've sold. Superlatives, so Settlers of Catan uses longest road. You have largest army as well. I already talked about army. And in Ticket to Ride, you also have longest, certain routes, or like longest route. So if you have if you're the best at something in an objective way, you can have the number of goals that you've achieved. So if you have like a checklist of goals and you accomplish more goals than another player, that's something. And finally, in a cooperative game, simply not losing. So I think that could still translate to real life. If you don't lose the war, that's better than the person who does lose the war. I'm sure there are more of these. If you have any other countable, quantitative measures of success that could work in real life and in board games, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Thanks.